Hey guys, Sen here. As I promised, I'm going to be bringing to you guys on a regular basis a lot of my Capital Peak 2 shots that I'm able to land in the raid weekend at 2,000 plus upgrades. I've gotten really good at Sparky over the last couple of weeks, and so I have some absolutely mental attacks that I had to share. I'm a little bit sick today, so there's some stuffiness in my voice, but I just had to get these attacks out to you because they are honestly some of the best attacks I've ever landed on this channel. So let's just get started and hop into this raid weekend. Actually, post-editing Sen here, and I actually just landed this absolutely filthy Peak 2 shot, and I decided I had to include this at the very start. This sort of has a very trapped entry with the blast bow as well as some spear throwers and a bunch of defenses and traps pointing at the very start, but this dragon over here is not very well placed. There's no air defenses around, and so we can actually snipe the dragon down at the very start with a giant as well as some barbs to distract. And then just like that, we were able to very cheaply remove basically one of the biggest threats on a maxed out Capital Peak. And we have to work our way down to the bottom section using some more barbs to clear the trash because we want to deploy our Sparky on top of this air bombs and one-shot the spear thrower as well as cannon and work our way into the base where all of these defenses are super clumped up for a nice Sparky chain. So here's the thing. I bring a frost spell instead of a second rage spell because I figure that a second rage spell really wouldn't help me out on the second attack, and this is a pretty difficult base, and so we really need to maximize the value on all of our spells, and we're just going to bring that one rage spell using the frost spell to slow down all those defenses, especially the Capital Peak on the second attack, and then our rage spell needs to get us far into the base. And also this rage spell, I'm not dropping it immediately. I'm holding on to it as long as I can, letting the Sparky slowly work her way through while she's not taking too much damage, and try to chip away at this giant cannon without the rage spell because I want the rage to cover the Capital Peak, and so I can use wizards on the second hit and chain down the backside Inferno Towers. I've already mapped out basically all of my Sparky chains. She's gonna go after these defenses now and then go after the Crusher and one-shot the Rocket Artillery. Actually a Tesla pops, which is money. She's actually gonna lock onto the Crusher and then one-shot the Tesla as well. I was actually hoping that both of the giants would walk forward into the Sparky chain, but one of these giants walked a little bit too far forward and actually dodges the Sparky shot, and so we will have to deal with that giant on the second attack. But we'll also bring another Sparky, and that Sparky will be able to finally finish off that enemy giant, but there is so much still left on the base. 8.8k, the Capital Peak is still up, but because we used our two spells and made sure they'll also help us out on the second attack, we still have a chance against this base as long as we execute our attack well. The Inferno Towers are within wizard chain distance. Those are some of the biggest threats to the Sparky, so taking those out with wizards would be absolutely huge. We drop another frost on the backside blast bow as well as a bunch of other defenses, because we will not have too much tanking for the Sparky. We need to invest in some wizards as well as some other troops, including minions, to clear any clan houses on the backside so we don't time fail. But let's see how we approach this second hit. I start off with a giant on top of the Rocket Artillery. Is going to distract the Capital Peak and the blast bow, as well as pull the giant into a Sparky chain, and then we drop down an Inferno Dragon on top of the blast bow and not the Capital Peak, because I want to take out this blast bow, and I'm not sure my Sparky will be inside of this rage spell while attacking that. So we use the Inferno Dragon that can survive the Rocket Artillery shells and snipe the blast bow, and then we use a test wizard to see if there's any traps by the Capital Peak, and then we drop in the rest of our wizards as well as a couple of hog gliders to stun the Capital Peak and make sure it never fires on top of my Sparky. But those Inferno Towers are going down to the chains, and the Peak is going down to the Sparky blast. All of the defenses behind it are distracted. The blast bow is distracted by the hog riders, and my troops are converging towards the right side of the base. I finally dropped down my rage spell. Because I used that Inferno Dragon on top of the blast bow, I don't have to invest the rage early, and I'm able to use the rage spell on top of these backside defenses, and there's a money Sparky chain on top of the Mega Hidden Tesla that pops. I wasn't even planning for that. I thought the Tesla would be on the other side of the Capital Peak, like on the other side, but that worked out even better for me. We have a jump spell on the backside because we do not have that many rams, and I'm late on that giant to tank all the defenses, but Sparky has a ton of HP. We used two barbarians to finish off the backside spirit thrower, so the Sparky will not have to backtrack to that. But there's one more spear thrower over on the left hand side of the base. We can now send in our minions now that the spear thrower is gone up the bottom side and start in with our cleanup. Minions are so good on the Capital Peak because none of the traps can hit them, and they're just so good at clearing out all the clan houses. Sparky would obviously time fail if I tried to have her clean up the rest of this map, but with the help of Manny the Minion, we're going to be able to get this insane 2-shot against this max base with all the defenses inside. I did not think this was possible, but we were able to get this done at Silent Warrior and help them out by getting yet 4 2-shots already, and there's only 8 raids in. Let's see how far we can push it in this raid weekend. Taking a look at our first corner capital peak over at the Splasher, the first thing you want to consider is how you're going to take out all the trash buildings on the entry of the base and open up the map for deployment. Now, usually the best troops for doing this is a pack of split minions, because almost all the traps cannot hit the minions in the capital peak. The zap traps don't hit them, the log traps don't hit them, and then almost all of the bombs are just set to ground by default to defend all of the ground armies. Instead, the minions, as long as the air defenses are outside of range, they're practically immune to all damage, so you give them enough time and they clear a lot of trash for you. But in this case, the rocket artillery is actually covering this giant post, and so those minions can't actually snipe those giants from above. And so in this case, I start in with a miner from down low. He works his way inside and then pulls the giants outside of range of the rocket artillery, away from their posts, and the miner is able to 1v2 those giants with the help of its ramp up damage and clear a ton of trash buildings up ahead. Also, the miner is good in this case because the rocket artillery fires super slowly. Those shells float in midair for a long time, and then the miner just laughs in the wake of danger and goes underground before those shells ever come down on him. And now we have a barb in behind, as well as some minions to clear any trash buildings that the miner misses. But now we are perfectly set up with all the trash buildings cleared to work our way inside of the base. Now I'm going to do something that looks super unorthodox with Sparky. Alright, so you're gonna have to hear me out. Usually when the second layer defenses are within Sparky chain distance of these first layer defenses, like all these air defenses over here, I send my Sparky not inside of the base, but I have the Sparky walk her way around and chain as many defenses as possible. So you're going to see I use the giants to tank those first 3 defenses. I do not use any rams yet because I don't want the Sparky to go inside. I want her to walk left into the rage spell I pre-placed at the very start of the attack. And then I use the rams delayed to distract the Inferno Tower, as well as open up the walls for the second attack. And then the Sparky gets 1 chain off on the first rapid rocket, 1 chain off on that second rapid rocket, and then all of those defenses, especially that Inferno Tower, is down. The Inferno Towers are super difficult to navigate with Sparky, but we have taken it down without the Sparky practically taking any damage on the approach. And now there's just these 2 rocket artillery that fire super slowly, and we use a barb as well as a ram to take out this multi-cannon, and the Sparky will just let her do her thing and get as many buildings as possible. But from here, we're not going to give the Sparky any more tanking. We're going to use the rest of our troops to deal with this left side blast boat as well as this dragon post. This is a default ruin that the defender has not yet put inside the base. This is very common to run up against. A lot of defenders are lazy to put in their newer ruins inside the base and try to find a new base to run in the clan capital. So instead, they just decide to not do anything, leave those buildings outside, and let you as an attacker pick them off for free. So with a giant as well as an Inferno Dragon, we're able to take that all out super easily. The dragon is super annoying on the capital peak, so taking that out super cheaply like that makes our lives a ton easier, but there's still a lot on the backside. We had the frost on the first attack to cover the capital peak as well as the blast bow, but our job is still not easy, and we have to navigate this second attack very well if we want to finish off this base. So I start off with a graveyard spell behind the capital peak, and that is outside of range of any defenses besides the capital as well as the blast bow itself. Those 2 defenses are frosted up, they fire super slowly, and so that graveyard spell is going to do a great job at distracting them, as well as those Larrys are going to build up in behind the capital peak and help DPS that thing down. We drop in a Sparky as well as a giant to help tank and chain down these 2 spear throwers on the entry, and then some ramps to open up some walls, test for any zap traps on the left, and then distract all of those big defenses over there. As the Sparky is starting to work her way inside, now we finally drop down our rage to clip the wizard tower, and the Sparky is going to blast down the giant cannon just like that, work her way in towards this rapid rocket, and this is a money Sparky shot, blasting down the blast bow as well as the rocket artillery, and now another juicy shot taking down Tesla wizard tower spear thrower as well as giant cannon. Now, once the deployment zone is opened up towards the capital peak, we're now using an Inferno Dragon to try to snipe the capital peak down, as well as the hog gliders to constantly reset the capital peak shots before they ever come down. And now we have a last graveyard spell on the bottom section over here to distract all these point defenses so the Sparky can blast them all down without ever getting shot down by all those defenses over there. And this is one last money Sparky shot on top of this air bombs, taking down both of those last two cannons back there, as well as dealing a ton of damage to that bomb tower. So another shot is able to take that thing out. We saved a barrel as well as a pack of minions, and that is going to be enough to take out this Inferno Tower and Raid Cart Ruin on the backside over there. But our Sparky is still alive, still healthy, and we have a ton of troops and Graveyard Skeletons still working their way around to help clean up and make sure we don't have to wait too long for our first 2-shot against this maxed out base. Now we're up against the Capital Peak once again with our standard approach. Split minions on the entry, and those minions are going to work their way around clearing a ton of trash buildings. I was actually hoping that they would clear this cannon down south outside of range of any of the spear throwers, but unfortunately I'm not lucky enough and the minions sort of work their way around. They still get around 20% worth of trash, so huge value for those minions. And then once again this blast bow is super exposed on the outside, and that means we can just use a giant and use an Inferno Dragon and we can snipe that thing down outside of range of any defenses. But this time I actually go in with a Sparky attack instead of giants. I noticed that the only gap inside of the base for a 2x2 trap is between these defenses over here that we can cover with a Graveyard Skeleton spell. And those Graveyard Larrys are going to go in and distract all those defenses and then pull whatever traps that could be there. And then the Hogs are going to be safe to go in and stun all the defenses and take that all out. We frost the Blast Bow, we frost the Inferno Tower to make the approach with our Hogs even safer. And the Hogs are also good because the Rocket Artilleries as well as the Capital Peaks are super far back, and those are the main threats of the Hog Riders. So normally I go in with the Sparky when everything is super clumped up like this, but we go in with the Graveyard Hogs because I noticed that it can actually work when all the threats are sort of pushed all the way back inside the base. And also, I would rather have 2 Graveyard spells down instead of 2 Rage spells down that I would normally have to use with Sparky. The Graveyard Skeleton spells are going to still work even when the troops have cleared all the defenses in the way. Normally, when you use a Rage spell, that spell usually doesn't get you much value on the second hit because all your defenses in range of that Rage spell are all down, and there's basically no point to that spell. But the Graveyard Skeletons, they'll still work their way around, they'll still spawn on the second hit, and as long as there's no Wizard Towers or Bomb Towers that are just blasting down all the Larrys all at once, those Graveyard Larrys are still going to do a great job at distracting all the defenses, at doing a ton of damage for you on the second blow, and you're going to see just how much work they're going to be able to do. There's still 8k left on this Capital Peak, so this is a huge finish on this second hit. Once again, when there's a corner Capital Peak like this, I almost always go in with a Frostbow, slow everything down. We can also hit 2 Rocket Artilleries, a Giant Cannon, as well as an Inferno Tower, so that's huge value. You also want to consider the range of the Capital Peak. So I noticed that my Sparky can actually snipe this Blast Bow outside of range of the Capital Peak, so I don't really use any tanking for now, because I also want to hold on to my tanking and make sure my Larrys don't spawn too early and all get blasted down. But now, once the Sparky finishes that thing off, she goes in towards the Wizard Tower, we drop down a Giant to help distract, and then the Sparky gets one shot, blasts that all down, and then she actually walks in range of the Inferno Tower as she goes on top of the air bombs, but she pushes herself outside of range and works her way further left. Now we use a couple ramps to help distract, help generate some Graveyard Larrys. The Sparky actually splashes onto the Giants and does a huge amount of damage, but we finish off the Giants on the right side approach with those Graveyard Skeletons that are still spawning from my first hit, and they do a great job finishing off the Giant. And also when the defensive troops die, the Graveyard spells also generate some more Larrys for you, and they will also do a great job at cleaning up all these right side clan houses over there. But now my Sparky is working her way in. We have to make sure we preserve the HP on that with the help of the Hog Gliders. We can't really get a great angle with Inferno Dragons. I'm not going to bank on my Inferno Dragons walking outside of range of the air defenses to target the Capital Peak, so I just make sure that we bring some more Hog Riders, some more stuns on top of the Capital Peak so the Sparky doesn't get hit too much. But the Capital Peak has a ton of HP, and my Hog Riders are getting blasted down by the Rocket Artillery. It's super low. We drop down the Barb real fast to try to pick it off, but the Capital gets one more shot before it goes down on top of my Sparky and does so much damage, finishing her off. But The Barbarian inside actually finishes off the Rocket Artillery, finishes off the last big splash defense inside the base, and all those Larrys that we were able to generate from all those graveyard skeleton spells, we're going to be able to finish off those last few defenses, pull one last trap, one last bomb, but that cannon fires super slowly and doesn't have enough in him to take out all those skeletons before they beat through the wall and take out the last building of this base. And for our third corner capital peak, we're going to come in with the similar approach. A pack of minions on the entry, split them to clear all the trash buildings and open up the map towards the right hand side of the base. Then we drop in a giant as well as our Sparky in towards the spear thrower. And we're going to come in with a similar approach as we did to our first attack, where we sent in our Sparky and did not break her in immediately. We don't break her in immediately because I noticed that all these defenses over here are actually not covering the space just outside of the walls over here. So I sent in the Sparky and don't break her in to make sure she doesn't go under too much fire at the very start. Just make sure the blast bow constantly has some troops that are tanking it, and so the Sparky does not get locked onto by it. But unfortunately, you're going to see, because I did not pre-place the rage spell, I'm actually a little bit late on dropping the rage spell, and she does not get a rage shot on top of the air defense, but she does get a rage shot on top of the multi-mortar and finishes off the cannon, spear thrower, as well as giant cannon. So huge value shot over there. But that also means that Sparky is not able to one-shot the blast bow from there, and she's going to take a ton of unnecessary damage. And now we are on damage control. We have to keep the Sparky alive. We still have a rage spell in the troop bar. We drop a ram to try to tank the cannon, but unfortunately a giant bomb pops. The ram pulls the giant bomb and my Sparky gets hit by it. So the Sparky is taking a ton of damage. We drop another ram to try to tank this cannon, but another giant bomb hits my Sparky, and the Sparky is on life support, and unfortunately a third ram pulls a third giant bomb, and the Sparky goes down, and we still have a rage spell in the deployment bar. So this attack kind of went tragically wrong, but there's a bunch of free value on the bottom side. This giant post, we can snipe it with a pack of minions, as well as the dragon over there. We could take out with an Inferno Dragon. Unfortunately, our Inferno Dragon does not walk inside the minimum range of the blast bow, but that's not too big of a deal because we can use a pack of minions on the second attack, and those minions will finish off the blast bow as well as finish off this freight car over here. So it accomplishes the same thing, so not too big of a deal over there, but we have to figure out where we're going to place this second rage spell to try to make our second attack work. Because all the defenses on the backside are also clumped, it makes sense to bring in a second Sparky at least anyways. And so we drop down the rage spell leading in towards the air bombs as well as the rocket artillery to make sure we can take out the Inferno Tower on the top section over there super simply. We drop down 2 frost spells. The second frost spell on the left side is super nice, covering basically everything over there, and the first frost spell is there to cover the capital peak and make sure that thing fires slower. A giant up the left side to tank all these splash defenses over there, a Larry barrel up the right side to tank this Inferno Tower, and then a Sparky up the gut to try to splash everything down. She gets one shot on top of the air bombs, finishes all those defenses, one shot on top of the rocket artillery, and gets a ton of damage on the Inferno Tower, and those Larrys go over, finish off the rocket artillery, and now the Sparky is working her way left. Unfortunately, there's a ton of air defenses next to the capital peak, which means we can't really get an angle with Inferno Dragons to try to snipe that capital peak with Inferno Dragons, but we can just bring a couple extra hog gliders to make sure those hogs are constantly stunning the capital peak. We also used a hog to try to distract the Inferno Tower to get one more shot to finish off the Inferno Tower, but those hog gliders are going to do a great job one after the other to stun the capital peak, and they will slowly build up their numbers to overwhelm the capital peak before the Sparky takes too much damage. We even have one more zap to make sure the Sparky will never get shot on by the capital peak ever again, but those minions finished off the blast bow and are finishing off the cannon cart on the bottom section over there. And this base, even though the first attack did not quite go to plan, the second attack was really nice. Those 2 frost spells basically slowed down everything left on the base, and we were able to take it all out with a second Sparky. And now one last capital peak before we go, and this one is super weird looking, but it's also got all of its buildings inside of its base. If you take a look at all of these chain targets around the capital peak. Obviously, we're going to go in with a wizard bomb on the second attack, but we still have to set that thing up for the first attack, especially with this trapped entry over here with all these defenses as well as all these raid carts and defensive troops looking at my troops on the entry. It's not going to be comfortable to try to break out of this, but let's see how we do it. So first, we're going to put Frostspell on top of the capital peak. It slows down the capital peak, making it a lot slower and dealing a ton less damage, as well as this backside rocket artillery that would make my wizard bomb from a bottom angle a lot more difficult to do. And then we drop down our rage spell to make sure it also connects with the capital peak with our wizard for the second attack. If you can do so and make sure a rage spell can also help you for the second attack, place it deeper inside the base if you need to. Even if the Sparky is going to have to stand outside of the rage spell for a couple of shots, it's going to be worth it if you're able to save a whole rage spell like I'm going to be able to do on the second hit. And we're going to try to break out with a couple of rams to target the walls, and then those barbs inside are going to provide a little bit of distraction and try to pull any traps that are going to be there. But it looks like there's not going to be any traps, which is a little bit weird. There's usually like 20 bombs as well as like 10 zap traps down here for most bases that look like this, but we're going to wait for those barbs to die out, that raid card to go back towards its post, and then we're going to snipe down this little clan house with a barbarian. That will open up the map down low so we can get a good angle on that barrel. Now there's a zap trap, but it's a little too late as the barrel crashes down the cannon and finishes off the raid cart. The dragon is a little bit far away, so it's not going to get aggroed by the Larrys just yet, which is perfect for me. As the raid cart second form goes down and the Larrys start aggroing on top of the dragon, we pull it out with a ram. Now the thing with the dragon as well as the defensive troops in the clan capital, they aggro your troops based on where they're standing and not where their post is. So you can see this dragon is very far out in the base and is still getting pulled out even further because its aggro range is based on where its shadow is and not based on where its original post is. So it's still getting pulled out, and now once the Larrys go down, we can drop a giant this far away from the post and the dragon is still flying over. We finally get a good angle on top of the dragon with an Inferno Dragon, so we drop it down and we are ready to burst that enemy Super Dragon down. So that dragon started over here and he got pulled all the way down here to get blasted by the Inferno Dragon outside of range of all of these air defenses that were originally protecting him. But now we are pretty much set up to go. We're going to drop our Sparky in down low. Even though, like I said, she's going to be outside of the rage spell on her first couple of shots, it's not going to be a big deal. We just use a couple extra rams to try to tank the Inferno Tower to make sure that Inferno Tower never locks on top of the Sparky. We have to make sure we get into there as quickly as possible. We have a couple more giants to go, a couple more rams. We just need a couple of shots on these first few defenses, and that Sparky will do so much damage. One-shotting that giant cannon off of that cannon, one-shotting that wizard tower and air bombs on top of that spear thrower, and then we drop a hog rider towards the spear thrower on the right side to make sure the Sparky does not get distracted over there. Unfortunately, she locks on top of the capital peak. She does not chain off of the capital peak at all because that's a very big building, so she's going to quickly go down soon, but we have a jump spell to drop down for a second attack, and we have already set up our wizard bomb. We've already moved our way in towards the capital peak, and we are good to go. We drop down our graveyard spells on the backside to distract all these defenses to make sure my wizards don't get shot at. We drop down a Sparky on top of this multi-cannon to try to distract the capital peak, as well as while all these defenses over here are distracted, the Sparky is going to work her way around and sort of, just like on the first attack, just shop around the base and take all those defenses out from range. A giant to distract the peak as well as rocket artillery. Some wizards up the gut. Notice how that rage spell is just clipping those wizards, and some hog gliders to stun the capital peak as all of that gets blasted down. And it's just a matter of finishing off the base. We're going to target these splash defenses with our hog riders to make sure that the Larrys don't get splashed down. So we drop some for the blast, but we drop some for the mortars, and just make sure that the Larrys are well protected and are going to be able to finish off the last major point defenses inside of the base. The Sparky is also slowly working her way around. She's very healthy. We don't need any tanking for her, but the only problem with this attack at this point is going to be time, because there's a ton of traps on the capital peak. So we're going to fast forward from here. We've taken out basically everything on the base. I kind of screwed up. I should have dropped my last barbarian on top of this little clan house, so it gets kind of close on time, but we have a ton of troops still left. The Larrys beat through the last defensive giants inside the base, and we have just enough to walk all the way down south towards this last little clan house so we don't time fail even with a full health Sparky. If you reach 3 minutes on an attack, you will not have enough to finish off the base, but we do in this case, and that's a one last. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed today's attacks. I will actually be streaming tomorrow at around 6 p.m. EST, covering the raid weekend, doing some capital P2 shots, as well as a bunch of other fun attacks with the new update. I know I've covered a lot of Sparky as of late, but there's also a lot of new strategies ever since I've come back that I've not yet covered, and hopefully I can showcase a bunch of them there. But like and subscribe if you enjoyed today's video. Make sure you join the Discord link in the description below, and take care.